Okay, hello everybody. Kukri, for real. I want to bring together elements that we've been discussing about positioning, orientation, weight distribution, etc. And a kukri is actually a very good weapon to do this because it has features of both a stick and a knife for all practical purposes. The reason for that is even though it's a cutting weapon, it also has a lot of chopping, which is integral to using it effectively. Um, it's an ambush weapon primarily, and it's a very durable weapon, probably because it could be used for other things along with being used as a weapon. A lot of weapons developed from implements that had multi-purposes, agricultural purposes, etc. For our purposes, what's good about it is it can bring together certain principles that we've been working with. Um, it's a good way to demonstrate those and to work with them. So, the first thing I want to say is I'm going to be using the weapon in a very particular way. So, don't expect necessarily conform a conforming approach that you might be familiar with in Southeast Asian uses, uh, because there are a lot of things about the general use of the weapon that are questionable in my understanding and orientation. Things that, if you don't really understand what the weapon is for, might be accomplished in a slightly different way. So, with that said, let's get into it. Okay. The first thing is unsheathing the weapon. Understanding that our cutting blade is on the inside here, okay? A couple things we can do about that. If we come from upwards in this fashion, you don't want to be in a position where you're really pulling the blade into yourself, okay? So one of the first things that is a good habit to get into is having this down on your body, okay? So that my weight, it's forwards, and the weapon, it's at a tipping point where I'm getting ready to use it at a very downward angle, 45 or so to the ground, okay? What that allows me to do is, just by simply pulling this back, okay, I can have the weapon available, unsheathed, okay? Instead of coming here, right, from here, it's just right here, okay? It's not the only way to draw the weapon, okay? You can actually do an effective reverse draw with this weapon, but the same basic principle applies. You want to more or less come up. It's a similar draw that you can see with the karambit, okay? When it's with the reverse, with the blade coming from the lower part as opposed to the upper, okay? So, in either case, that first initial draw, you want to assume going forwards, okay? So if I'm doing a reverse draw, it's here, pushing the hip back, coming up. If I'm doing the frontal draw, weapon coming down, same thing, here, okay? If I want to draw the weapon across, well, a couple ways you can do that, but you want to have the weapon right between to your side flank and to your front, okay? If it's too much to the side, that's pretty obviously kind of not going to work for you if you're cutting in this direction. And if it's too far here, you have the blade coming out at an angle. So by having it at this slight angle now, there's your draw, okay? You don't have to struggle with the blade coming out of the scabbard, okay? as far as the draw of the weapon, you can think of it as a stick in that you have a protection here, just like you would with a stick. It's a little different than a sword draw, okay? More like a stick in this way, so that this will protect you. You don't overshoot your hand on your draw, okay? So, for example, from here, and I'm making this draw up here, okay? Right to about here will give me this cut here, okay? You also can draw this way as well, okay? Coming from here or up from here, so that you're drawing much like you do certain sword draws, up this way. Again, not here where you run into the angle of the blade working against you, and not here where you have to pick the blade up, okay? You want to come and divide that 90 degree into about a 45, right about here, okay? Now you have a lot of flexibility when you can draw it properly. See, you don't have to even try to be particularly fast because you have the right physiological dynamics to do the draw properly, okay? Now, on the cuts, when you're getting used to the weapon, okay? Once I draw this weapon here, okay, you can make your first cut here. But the thing you want to keep in mind is, don't think in terms of blocking or being defensive, but always think in terms of deflecting. Anything that gets in your way with this cut, okay, you can deflect, okay, in either direction. So a lot of times you'll see in Southeast Asian styles, once this cut is completed, you whip the weapon around, okay, in some fashion, okay? And that's one way of addressing that, because your initial might be a deflection here, and then to cut, you turn into the proper positioning, okay? Same thing going this way. You're here, okay, to here, all right? Anything that comes, though, you can deflect, okay? So that you never have to stop what you're doing because something is coming towards you, okay? And just like in any sort of a combat scenario with a blade, the safest thing to do is counterintuitive. It's to basically come into your opponent as fast as possible. If his range is here, okay, once you go back from that, now he can control you with a continued attack because you're going backwards. When you're going backwards, it's very hard to do anything effective, okay? But once you enter into this area, past the blade, you can be effective. So that if I'm here and boom, something comes this way, it's deflected, I'm right into the center of my opponent, okay? And I can, at that point, make any particular cuts I want to do. So we're going to get into the cuts now. We're going to actually do the next part so we keep things nice and simple. We'll do a part 2 now, okay? Hang tight.